If you fail, it will be a massacre.
Let's talk about this for a minute.
Why? We've got orders to cross here.
That would be the whole film. I'm serious, because, you know, I wrote on the front page of the script, this movie is written and designed to be one shot, one continuous shot. And I sent it to him and I said, I warn you, you know, you got to get past the first page and read it. I think, you know, he was worried when he first read it, probably he didn't want it to be a gimmick, you know. But I was convinced it wasn't, and that there was a reason, there was a story reason to do it. But the big challenge was, you know, to divorce how difficult it was and try to get to what we actually wanted the camera to do and express in every moment, because we couldn't cut. And so we had to construct this dance between the actors, the camera and the landscape, which is constantly moving through land and different environments. And we talked for months and months about it, you know, almost non-stop, and rehearsed and talked and constructed things and talked and practiced and, you know, all this stuff. And so when we came to shoot it, it wasn't exactly easy, but it was easier than I think we both imagined. But it was because we'd spoken so much about it. And we, you know, Roger, it's a job of engineering, just alone engineering, you know, because we were shooting on wires, on cranes, on backs of vehicles, on motorbikes, handheld, constructing rigs that have never been invented before, and even a camera body by Ari that didn't exist until this movie, because we had to get it into such tight spaces, down holes and into dugouts, and so it was an engineering challenge as much as anything else, but it was a lot of fun.
Get to your brother.
I will.
Well, I suppose I'd always wanted to, in an ideal world, you know, I'd always wanted to be one of those guys who can sit down and write the movie I wanted to make, but I never felt motivated to do it, partly because I didn't think of myself as a great writer, and when you're being offered scripts by people who are better than you, you should do those instead. So, but the Bond experience gave me the courage to sit down in a room and write on my own, because I'd been in the room with the writers developing both those movies from scratch. There was nothing. So I wasn't unfamiliar with a blank page. And that was the first time really I felt that. And then also we did the beginning of Spectre was a long 8-minute shot. And that gave me a kind of flavour of what it might be like to make a whole movie like that. And I was excited by that idea. And then when I came to do it, there was this story that I wanted to tell, which is a story based on the stories my grandfather told me of the First World War. And that gave it a personal dimension. I felt like it was my family story in a way, so that I should you know, get off my butt and write something myself. I auditioned hundreds of young actors, but first of all I wanted young men, and I wanted kind of the audience to have a new relationship with them. I didn't want them to know whether they were going to live or die. And I wanted it to feel, I suppose, like there were just two amongst 2 million, you know, and not special in any particular way. So there was that, and then, you know, I wanted an old-fashioned, dignified, quite internal, quite English man for Schofield, and that was George. And I wanted someone chattier and funnier and more vulnerable and younger and less experienced for Blake, and I wanted that unlikely friendship to feel real. So that's why I went for the two of them, and they were great, and they became friends off camera, and that was also helpful.
There is only one way this ends. Last man standing.
I don't think you ever know kind of what the final piece will be. I just wanted to be involved because the first thing I heard about it was Sam. You know, the audition, it was a First World War piece by Sam Mendes. And so immediately knowing Sam's work and, you know, in both theatre and film, just wanted to be involved. And then on the second audition, then it was reading the two audition scenes, which were just written so beautifully, which was the script written by Krysty and Sam, and then meeting Sam and the way he explained this one-shot nature of how we were going to do it and what that would mean. We rehearsed for 6 months beforehand, just being involved and having an understanding of all aspects of the filmmaking process for so long before, just wanted to be a part of it. And I think the undertaking was so great. The only way to do it was just to take one step at a time and build it layer by layer, rather than get overawed by the idea of the final piece.
Pretty much what George said. It was really, it was really exciting to work with Sam, and knowing that he was sort of going to lead the ship, and working with the director like Sam, he's got such a clear, crystal clear vision of the characters. He knew the character just as well as me, and he also wrote the script with Krysty, so having that as a director that's sort of guiding you is very comforting as an actor. It is different. It was raw and genuine, but at the same time very well. I mean, we had to be so specific in what we were doing. It was a choreographed dance, everything we were doing. But everything was just so realistic and so immersive. Like Dennis Gassner, the production designer, did such a brilliant job in bringing those trenches and those sets to life. And it never felt like we were walking on set. It felt like we were walking, in the trenches. And that's what was great about it. So that really did allow you, to just lose yourself in the scene. And the whole one take aspect, you can do a scene for 9 minutes long and just forget you're making a film. And that's where it comes in, where it's just a raw, honest, genuine performance rather than acting. There's a sequence I've talked about a lot in No Man's Land, when the camera sort of comes down to Blake and Schofield's feet, and our feet are just slipping everywhere. And that's not us acting that we're slipping, that's genuine how we're trying to walk in the mud. So a lot of it really was just reacting to how the characters would react in that situation and just be real about it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the loveliest things was just Sam would often be a bit like throw it away, just talk, and also take pauses as well, like that. I remember when we first came to rehearse a section at the front line, and obviously the lines are fresh in our heads, so you just want to kind of get through them. And he was like, no, just think about what they're thinking about. They've got to process this mission they've just been given. Just walk in silence for a bit. And when you feel like talking, start talking. And that thing of, and we had to plot those distance, and eventually that distance became specific, but just the kind of naturalism that he encouraged in the way that in a normal conversation things go quiet. And you think about something else, and then and it was just, and also just play. The camera was always there, and you're never offering it, sort of like you might on stage or something like that. You were just, it just felt so natural.
It was very lived. Oh, I mean, they're completely different things. I mean, I did this thing called Into the Badlands, and I had to fight with 2 swords, and I only did like a 9-day boot camp for that. But, really, we was doing like 8-hour days trying to learn, how to fight with swords. And I did pretty much all my own stunts in that. But that was completely different, that was, like my character would cut himself and then he'd suddenly turn into like this super-powered, they called it dark chi, and he was pretty much indestructible. Whereas this is, they're not superheroes, they're just real men. They're just British soldiers they can't fly, they can't, wield knives like Castor could. He just, they're just men. And the thing is, this is a very real story, a very human story. It's not necessarily a World War I film. It's not an educational war film. It's just a very simple story, really, told on a very human level. And they're 2 different projects.
If you don't get there in time, we will lose 1,600 men. Your brother among them. Good luck.
So Sam is a delight to work with. He's very open, he's very honest, he's very generous. He's the kind of collaborator that you don't mind looking stupid in front of, which is so important because if you can't get through the kind of stage where you're pitching stupid ideas, you don't get to the stage where you end up with, good ideas. But the process for this film was really different from anything else I've written before. I knew before we even sat down and wrote the treatment that it was going to be one shot, and it was going to be a story in real time. So you have to completely retrain your brain how to write that, because usually a script is like a map, you're just trying to get a lot of people to a place where they can then have a finished film, but this script had to be the destination. It had to be the finished film. When you read it, you had to kind of see it in your head. And also because we wrote it on spec, we didn't even know if it was going to work or not. So we wrote it, we sat down and started this just like winging a prayer, like maybe it'll work and it'll be cool, and if it doesn't, that's fine. We would have done 6 months unpaid work, which is a bit of a bummer if you've got a mortgage, which I do. But no, very luckily, Sam and I together, muddled through, got it to the stage where we were really happy with it, and then all these other brilliant people came on board, and you end up with 1917. Well, I mean, I was really involved in the process from not the conception of idea, but basically putting the idea on paper all the way through to last week, or this week even. I'm still involved. It was really amazing to be part of that, because the nature of the script, there's no final edit, like not in a traditional sense. And the edit's called the final rewrite for a reason, because you can do anything you want in the edit suite. And so I had to be on set, because whatever we recorded on set that day would go straight into the film. And sometimes dialogue wouldn't work, or sometimes there was too much dialogue, or sometimes, there was a change, or an actor would do something in a certain way. And so it was basically my job to then tweak the script before they shoot it, so we would rehearse in the morning usually. So I'd turn up very early, which was horrendous for me as a writer. I'm like, I'll get out of bed about 9, and they're like, we'll see you at 7. I was like, why? So I would get up early, I would be on set, we would run a rehearsal, we'd run a technical rehearsal then after that, and then we would keep kind of refining, because it was all a dance between the actors and the camera and the set design. So there was times in the mornings where Sam was like, can we dig some more trench? And they would. That was how amazing the set was. They had the ability to literally tunnel, which is fairly niche. And then we would start to go for takes, and even during the takes, sometimes we would be refining until Sam was happy, until we got it right. But there was months of rehearsals before we actually sat down and shot as well, which I was massively involved in, which was a dream come true. It's so rare do you get to, as a writer, be involved in the process where they're fixing the dialogue in the actors' mouths. And to work with George and Dean, who are both so spectacularly talented, brought so much of those characters on the page for us, that allowed everything to just be better. No Man's Land was particularly difficult, just because the terrain itself was almost unnavigatable. You couldn't get across it. I almost took George MacKay out falling. I sunk into mud, and it was tough just from a purely physical sense for everyone, especially for George and Dean Charles. I mean, what they had to do, and you see it, in the film, it looks hard, but they probably had to do it 40, 50 times a day, because by the time you factor in the technical rehearsals, the takes, everything like that, it was again and again and again, and that mud was like ice. It was like oil. You couldn't stand on it. So that was really hard. But then every day we sort of reminded ourselves that we're just making a film that men for real, we were there for 3 weeks. Men were in France for 3.5 years, and they were getting shot at. Do you know what I mean? And they were fighting for their lives. So even though it was difficult, there was always that kind of reminder in your head of well, what we're doing is just a percentage, 1%, 0.5% of what these men went through, which I gave everyone a sort of sense of respect. I worry that I will be murdered, that there may be a sniper if I tell you anything about it. What I can tell you is that it shot right after 1917. I was on the set for that as well. I was blown away by the talent and skill of Anya and Matt and Thomas Mackenzie, who's just unreal. Edgar's skills, and I've seen a bits of it cut together. I've seen some of the sequences. I'm really, really proud of it. I can't wait for the world to see it. It's everything you want from an Edgar Wright movie, but it's still a bit different from his usual. So that's what I can say.